Prosecutors want to put Dallas Cowboys defensive tackle Josh Brent back in jail. Brent has been out on bond, charged with intoxication manslaughter for the death of a teammate in a drunk driving crash last year. Dallas County prosecutors asked a judge to revoke Brent's $100,000 bond, saying a drug test last month turned up evidence of marijuana use. Brent is charged in the car crash that killed Jerry Brown, a Cowboys practice squad player. Police say Brent was driving the car and had a blood alcohol content more than twice the legal limit.
Okay, Heather, thank you. Mary Griffiths is a Dallas attorney, also a jury consultant, knows how juries, or tries to know how juries operate and what they're thinking at different times. Let's first talk about the problem for Brent, essentially, because he had a similar thing a few weeks ago. The prosecutors wanted to revoke bond. They said he'd been drinking, and his attorney kind of parlayed that into, well, there's a lot of lotions and things that have alcohol, and that's what triggered it. Marijuana doesn't have really the same ability. If that shows up in your urine, more complicated.
Correct. And the judge initially denied when the prosecution did this before, but that same day asked him to take the urinalysis, to take the urine test. And then all of a sudden, this comes up where they find out that there was marijuana in his urine.
Does this show any real desire for prosecution? Are they going after him, do you think? I mean, or is this just how it works?
Well, you know, there's two things. A prosecutor is going to say, look, that you could potentially be a harm to society, because that is why we want to revoke your bond, because you know of what the law is and you chose to not obey it. Meaning that when you initially got your bond, you knew that you couldn't have any alcohol, you couldn't take any drugs, you couldn't do any of that. And here we have this potential of,
understood,
we now have you violating your own bond requirement.
And who's to say if you're going to do that, maybe you drink alcohol and then you drive again and then another accident. I see where you're going with that. Okay, I get it. Let's talk about this specifically, how it will enter into the trial. It doesn't enter specifically because this would be something maybe later at sentencing. So they're not going to go in and open the argument and say this guy's been failing drug tests, it just won't go in. But you say it kind of is. Because
right now we're in the pretrial, publicity stage. This trial is scheduled for September, so here we are in June. What the prosecution is now saying is before your June trial, we're saying that you need to be in jail. You need to be incarcerated before your actual trial. So now we have this publicity that's going on. So will this affect potential jurors? Come September, when they walk in and sit down to hear this case, they're going to remember, hey, I think I heard something about this guy violating the bond. So that type of publicity can come in sort of inadvertently, like what we're doing here.
It gets more complicated, I guess, because you talk about with a jury pool. I don't know how that questioning specifically would go, but have you heard of this case? You know, a Dallas Cowboy accused of killing a teammate.
Correct.
That's pretty high notoriety, yes.
Right.
But the question is, and I also heard he was arrested for drinking and he had marijuana in his system. That's where it gets problematic.
Right. And then the prosecution, the prosecution is then going to want to know, and says the defense, well, how will that affect your decision in this potential case? I mean, there's a sports bias, and now there is a bias against that he maybe did not do something that he was supposed to do to keep with his bond being what it should be.
I mean, do you think the trial will be moved over something like this? Change of venue?
No, I don't think a change of venue. I think maybe they'll want to move the trial date. If I was on the defense, kind of get away from this.
Create some space?
Yes, because September's very close.
How about Josh Brent? Does he go to jail, you think, now?
Well,
or does somebody step forward and, the judge gave him I don't know, I thought Judge maybe gave him a pass last time. It kind of increased his responsibility. And now this. What do you think happens?
I think it's going to be a very tough call for the judge right now, because now we have a fact. We have evidence that you violated the bond, that I said that you could not take alcohol, you could not take drugs. Now I have evidence from your own urine that says you did otherwise. So it'll be a tough call for the judge to say.
And the judge knows what you were talking about before. A judge sends him to jail. That's a big pretrial publicity thing, or jurors
will know. Hey, he went to jail for a few months before the trial.
Because we're going to cover it if it happens.
Exactly.
Big time. All right. Mary, thanks for coming down. Good perspective. Thanks a lot.